It doesn't sound great to be playing in what sounds like an indoor field. Like we're playing indoor soccer.
It really is like comparable to that. Yeah. I think,
we're playing sevens. Like what's going on?
Yeah, basically we should. That would be so sick. 7-on-7
really
Open Cup. That might be the
semifinals and finals should be sevens. Hello and welcome to Happy Foot, Sad Foot, your LAFC gateway drug and the only LAFC podcast with a scheduling conflict every show of the season. I'm Darren Miller.
And I'm Vince LaRosa. Welcome to our preview episode of LAFC's Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup semifinals match versus, of course, the Seattle Sounders, because who else would we be playing for the millionth time this season?
It's got to be the Sounders.
Yep. They'll play that match on Wednesday, August 28th at Starfire Sports Complex at 7:30 p.m. You can watch it on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV Plus for free. And our live post-game call-in show will start 10 minutes after the final whistle at youtube.com/@HappyFootSadFoot.
Which is also free. Our show's free too.
For now.
For now. Later in the show, we will talk to Noah Riff and Ari Liljenwall.
We should have asked him how to say his last name.
Yeah, I mean, they pronounced it so effortlessly, which makes sense because it's their names, so they do it often. But I couldn't remember it well enough. So I butchered those names, but they're the fantastic hosts of the Seattle Sounders podcast, Lobbing Scorchers. And of course, we'll cover all the storylines for this week's matches and make some bets. But first, there's now two of us racing home from an office to put down our briefcases and put on our headphones. It's listener-mandated banter. Vince, Travis is not here. He couldn't be here today. He did send in the storylines for us to cover later, and I believe he should make it to the post-game.
I actually want to let everyone know, if people are wondering why Travis isn't here, it's your guys' fault. Because after our post-game show where everyone was saying that Steve Chernobyl should be fired, Travis kept reading comments and he kept diving deeper into a hole, and now he is actually going to get his coaching badges because he thinks that there may be an opening at LAFC head coach. And so look what you've done to our boy, guys. He might actually learn the sport, and we're all worse off for it.
Our impressionable co-host, you just got to be a little more careful than that, guys.
Yeah, he takes these things to heart.
He gave him so much false hope with all this Dolo out, and in his mind, he goes straight to conspiracy theories with the crazy walls, and he's thinking, well, if Dolo's out, what does that mean? That means there's an in. How do I get in? And off he goes. It's all over. So I guess we're going to have to be here to catch him when he falls after the disappointment he faces.
Yeah, I mean, when we win on Wednesday,
you guys too. I'm not going to take that.
Yeah, you guys got to build him back up after what you did. And I have a feeling he's full of confidence right now that these badges are going to go well. I had to tell him they were badges. They're not physical badges. I think he believes that they will be patching them on him like he's a Boy Scout and or Girl Scout. And he's going to be pretty disappointed. That right there is going to probably set him back a few weeks in terms of getting the coaching courses done. But yeah, I have a feeling. Look, Darren, you start out at like D level. The D level is basically like, hey, can you put some cones down and can you learn CPR just in case a child? Because usually you're coaching kids, and if something goes wrong, it's all about the safety of the kids. C and B get a little tough, and then A is just rigorous. I can't see it happening.
Well, Travis said this is his first stop. I think he was saying to us, wasn't he? He was saying LAFC is his first stop with Dolo out, and the U.S. men's national team is in the 5-year plan.
Yeah, which is also your guys' fault. You guys keep talking about national team coaches and how no one's good enough. You've created a vacuum. That's called a power vacuum, and Travis will step in.
Yes. Who doesn't love a power vacuum?
I mean, I like a strong vacuum.
I like a regular vacuum for sure.
Yeah. Nice Dyson.
Who doesn't love a vacuum? I mean, that's a different topic, but maybe a better topic.
Incredible banter. We have knocked this one out of the park.
Well, banter done. Let's start the show.
Yeah, let's start the show, please.
Okay. All right. Well, as the more casual fan on the show, I might be obsessed with LAFC to an unhealthy degree, but it's not my entire personality. I have a lot of other stuff going on that makes me an extremely interesting and well-rounded human who is definitely 100% human. And that takes a lot of work, so it's not always easy to keep up with the team when they're playing in a Leagues Cup final one day and then a semifinals of a whole other tournament 3 days later against a team they just played in the other tournament. And honestly, I feel like in the regular season too, or maybe just the regular season, I don't really remember. It's hard to tell because now everyone but us is back to playing in their regular season games, but we're stuck in some kind of vortex of tournament fever dreams where we lose all of our finals matches and also all of our teeth and show up late for class with no pants on. And we also maybe now have a new best player on the team and or two less almost best players on the team. And losing in that last tournament finals means we're pre-scheduled for another tournament nightmare next season too. I don't know. Luckily, I'm always joined by Travis, the human LAFC crazy wall, and or Vince, a real expert who just knows enough stuff that he doesn't really need a nickname, who are here to break down the most important storylines of every match so we can all enjoy them so much more in a segment we call Storylines. Well, me, Vince, Means. Travis could not be here today, but he did send in the storylines by proxy because the man's not going to miss the storylines.
No.
And I think after it hasn't been long, we're still hungover from that loss, and I think the storylines were pretty clear moving into Wednesday. Still, I really am still kind of sore from Sunday.
We're literally talking less than 24 hours after we stopped talking yesterday.
Yeah. This is recording 2 nights in a row is something that we've done a number of times on this show, but I don't know that we've done recording after a loss in the finals of a tournament and then pick up the next day
in the semifinals of another
to record for a semifinals in the next tournament. This is not an easy one, but that really does bring us to the first storyline of the match, a segue that is almost as good as Travis's segues and yet entirely unintentional. The first storyline of the match, will we shake it off? The emotional baggage of this tournament final was rough. Not only do we have a history of losing in finals, of losing to Columbus, of not being able to figure Columbus out, but we also have a history of losing in finals and then being stuck in that hole for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to shake off. I mean, I would love to shake off all the Columbus stuff. Obviously, I would love to shake off the finals of it all. But I think the worst case scenario here might be that the hangover of this loss lasts and has negative effects on not only this tournament and maybe even not only this next tournament, but also the MLS season.
Yeah, I mean,
what do we do there?
You could be of two minds here. You could say exactly what you said. We're emotionally drained. We really wanted to win that game. It was a final. Although this is a semifinal, one step away from a final, it doesn't feel quite the same because it's going to also be in a minor league stadium. From what we've heard from the Scorchers guys that we'll talk to later. But the flip side of that is after such a bad loss, there's no better thing to do than get back out there, get back on the horse. And what better team to play against after the team that you can't seem to beat is the team that can't seem to beat you. So
it's true.
I think there really is two ways to look at it. What my barometer for if a team can shake it off is if they've faced adversity in the past and been able to overcome it. Because even when teams win championships, there's always these ups and downs that we don't necessarily always remember because once you have the trophy in hand, you're like, we dominated, we killed everybody. But it never really goes that way, right? And you might look at LAFC and go, well, this is the first real setback of the season. I seem to remember early on in the season.
The beginning
difficult to watch.
Yeah.
And weren't able to put a consistent performance together. They definitely weren't able to, win. There was a time where we were like, will they win 2 games in a row? And now they're reeling off, 6-7 game win streaks or at least unbeaten streaks. So I think if they can draw from that, they can do well. I guess the bigger concern would be terms of injuries and who will play in that game. And we'll actually get really deep into that with the Lobbing Scorchers guys. So I don't want to go too into that, but they have it within them to do it. And they have faced adversity this season. It's not that I'm saying I'm confident. I'm just saying there's a blueprint and some muscle memory there, which hopefully they can draw upon. I would say that this is a team that has some good veteran leaders that should be able to remind the rest of the team about that in order to draw from it.
For sure. I think that last part is very important. And I think what's significant to me about this is it's one thing to have to figure out whether or not they're going to be able to shake off the baggage. It's another thing for that to be tested 3 days later. Like, this is a true test of it. It's like, it's a pop quiz, right? Like, they just dealt with this, and you gotta be over it now because it's going to get way worse if we then lose this match as well. I think you can have a hangover of like 1 or 2 games and kind of bounce back if what's following that loss is a few MLS matches, and it's like, okay, they took a little bit to find their footing again, and now they're like back in business, everything's okay. We don't have that luxury, and it's really, we're diving right into the fire here to see if we can pull off just bouncing right back right away, or just falling really, really deep into it. So I don't love that.
It really could go either way, right? So like I'm not just saying that to hedge my bets. Like that's the sway of this, right? Like that's how kind of dire this moment is. It's either feast or famine. I will add this as kind of a last point on it. And I don't know if this means anything, but I do remember a couple of years ago, I talked to the performance coach just about LAFC in general and what it's like when they play a lot of games and how the kind of performance staff looks at it. And he said something was interesting because they measure all the guys' outputs after every single game, right? And they've said that they've actually noticed it, and counterintuitive to what you would think is the last game, like of a very important stretch, the output is normally bigger because the team kind of like understands maybe this is the end. No matter what, this is the end. We got to get over the hill, and then we're going to have a little bit of a break. Now, LAFC won't have a real break because they'll play again on the weekend. But if you say regular season games, obviously you don't want to throw them out the window, but we got to get over the hump and get to a final. I think that might bode well for LAFC. Even though they may be physically exhausted, they might be able to push that little bit further and really give a good output in this final game, knowing that it's do or die. It's either win or not, and let's just see what we can do, and then we'll sort it all out on the weekend for that following match.
Yeah. Well, I guess that does bring us to the next storyline to see just what version of this team we're going to see. What will our team look like by this time next week? We have not only coming off of the performance and the quick turnaround from the last match, but we also have rumors of both Kike and Bogusz perhaps leaving the team. If so, it's not clear when. We have, I guess you would say, hopefully minor injuries to Giroud and
Murray.
Murray, that's right. And Tillman is back now, which is good, but also different. He did not start last match. Hopefully we'll start this match. But then we're also playing on turf. We're also playing on another pitch, which I don't know. I wasn't familiar. I don't know how many of our viewers and listeners are familiar with. I don't even remember the name of it anymore. Starship Trooper Field?
Starfire, which is still cool.
Starfire Arena? This place is a wild place. It feels like almost too much of an advantage to be leveraging, but we will learn a lot more about that when we interview Noah and Ari. It's a weird place. We might see a different lineup because of it. I don't know what the game plan is going to be because of it, but I don't know. Well, who are we going to see? What do you think?
Well, let's just address the rumors first. Like Mateusz Bogusz, rumors to Celtic, slight rumors to Lazio still, but I don't think those have really caught on. And then probably the more solid rumors, just because of the source. Like for those that don't know, Cesar Luis Merlo, he's a journalist in South America, a very reputable journalist, and normally does not report stuff unless he does in fact have solid knowledge. And he was reporting that a deal for Christian Oliveira to Toluca, which if people remember the name Renato Paiva, who was a contender to take over LAFC back when Steve was hired. So he may have, I don't know what kind of plans was shared with him or what he knew of Christian Oliveira before or during that process or even after. He is now the coach of Toluca. And so those things kind of coming together makes you a little weary. I trust Cesar Luis Merlo's reporting. I really do. Now, that being said, reporting on transfers is always like, it can change. There could be a deal in place. He could be reporting the truth, everything that he knows to be the truth at the moment, and things have changed. And I will say, we haven't seen much since that though. Like there hasn't been much more reports. And so I'm not saying to get optimistic because there hasn't been, but it's just kind of odd that despite, and maybe it's just because the team was in the final and both teams wanted to really keep it shut and it just leaked out a little bit. And now there's been, kind of a embargo lifted, but I still haven't seen very many rumors. So who's to say? I don't think that with the game being so close that either one of them would be gone before this game. But as you mentioned, that's not the only worry we have, Darren. There's injuries. After the match, Steve Cherundolo did say the 4-3-3 formation would be coming back to LAFC, and that might be out of necessity. When you have, you can play 3 center backs, but if you have just one backup and then one guy goes down, now you have actually 3 healthy, good center backs. You probably don't want to play all three at the same time. So maybe the 4-3-3 is out of necessity. Tillman is back, although who knows what level of full fitness he has. He didn't play a lot. He's probably not going to start. Lewis O'Brien has added more and more minutes and been hot and cold. I think he's had some really good moments, but also has had some passes that left some things to be desired. Obviously, people are not high on Edward Atuesta right now. Had a really tough game in that final. Giroud, they said injury, but not as bad. With the turf, as you mentioned, Starfire being a weird place. I think Kai Kamara probably starts, and then maybe you see Giroud. So I don't know. It's a really good.
I feel like no lineup will be surprising, and every lineup will be surprising.
Right. I think the only thing that people would really rail against is if it ends up being a lineup with, and no offense to these guys, but if like a Duenas and Ordaz are both in this game, I think people are going to be pretty upset. And I wouldn't blame you. This is still a semifinal.
And yet you're talking about fresh legs, which we don't have a ton of right now. Campos, we haven't seen much of him lately, so maybe he's around. And W. Martinez, which is a real
Martinez.
wild card to play.
Can we just start calling him Vibes?
This?
Just Vibes Martinez.
Vibes Martinez?
Yeah.
De Vibes Martinez?
Oh. Yes, we've done it.
We've
done it. We solved Martinez. It, people.
Well, yeah, it could be anything. But also, we might see just like a lot of subs.
Sure.
What do you think? This will make more sense once you've listened to the interview, but like, how well do you think Dolo and the staff understand Starfire? Like, how many times have they seen this place?
I mean, I don't think they've seen it. I mean, Marc Dos Santos did coach Vancouver, and maybe he had been there. Maybe the Caps played there for something, but I think you'd be surprised. I mean, one of the things that came out that Steve talked about after the game was like, we noticed that Columbus really puts in a hard effort early in the game, and they get out ahead of teams, and they really put them under pressure early, but they seem to falter a little bit. And we actually did see that a little bit in the game where they kind of ran out of gas for a little bit. They were able to then kick it back up a gear when LAFC got their goal. But they did. LAFC were back on the front foot. I think the level of detail to which, and you don't have to believe me because I know a lot of people are down on this coaching staff, but I do think they put a real level of detail to where they're like, there's a lot of factors that can win you a game. Tactics, better players. One of them's conditions. One of them's things that you see about a team that maybe that we miss because we're too busy trying to understand exactly how a team plays because we're not as good at breaking down teams the way a professional staff is. I do think that they really look at games and the way to win them from a lot of different angles. So I wouldn't be surprised if they at least look at the field and say, okay, dimensions are this. They'll at least know that, like, it's a smaller field. How do we have to play? In what way should we set up our team? And what maybe little bits of information should we give our team in terms of how they should consider playing when they're on the field due to different factors like that? I absolutely think that they do that for every single game. And that's whether it's a small field, it's a day where it's going to be more humid. I do think that they really look ahead of things. And you don't have to believe me, but I've been there and I've seen it.
Well, I'm sure Seattle's going to be doing the same thing, and they know what to do with that field, which does bring us to our third and final storyline of the match. How bad does Seattle want this? This is a revenge match for Seattle, the same way our match on Sunday was a revenge match for Columbus. Judging by how pissed off all of us were after that match, it was pretty clear we all wanted that one pretty badly. As I'm sure you'll see in this interview that we have coming up, Seattle certainly wants this one badly, and they need it, which doesn't help us. They've turned their season around. I'm surprised by how many parallels there are between our teams this year. They turned their season around the same way we did, and yet we're the monkey they can't shake off their back. And they're out for blood. And this is a game that we really can't afford to lose and fall further, as we mentioned. So I don't know. I'm hesitant to get too deep into this now because we have this a lot. This is a lot of what we cover in this interview, but I don't know. Maybe what's your take after hearing what they have to say on where we stand on this?
Yeah, I don't want to step on it too much because Ari and Noah both gave great answers to this and really kind of broke it down in a way that even made a lot of sense to an LAFC fan. I'll just say this, like, if they can't muster at least an effort, like let's say the game goes to the way it went last time LAFC played them, then this Seattle team is in serious trouble. You would think with all the history, with what's on the line, if you can't get up for this game and you can't at least give LAFC a real challenge, not to say they have to win it, but if they can't take LAFC to the wire, then I think there's even bigger problems than any Seattle fan imagined. Every single player and every single member of that coaching staff is going to be looking around going, guys, we're in some big trouble no matter what happens this season. And we're now absolutely playing for our jobs.
Yikes. Well, that doesn't sound like a team you want to play.
Yeah, the proverbial animal with its back against the wall.
Right, which historically is something Seattle does better than most teams.
They are a gritty team. I think that's the one thing that we didn't really get into. I'm a
little bit worried about more injuries in this game, given how they play and the pitch and the situation they're in. Like, this is all, to me, adding up to we're slightly hobbled and we might end this game a little bit more hobbled. And maybe that's the hangover we're talking about. Maybe it's not quite psychological. Maybe it's going to be more physical. I
will say that's one thing that we didn't talk too much about with the guys because we went more into the soccer and just kind of like the stadium. But like the Seattle team and Seattle as a culture, as an organization, has always been known for being like, they can play some good football, but at the end of the day, their mentality is top, right? They're a gritty team. They just find ways to win. And that's something that they've kind of lacked at moments, in the sharpest moments this season. But to your point, they have found ways to then reel off a bunch of wins as long as they're not playing LAFC. So as I say, if they can't find that bit of grit against a team that has clearly dominated them over the last 9 matches, then maybe it's time to really look at some more answers, and those answers might come in the way of a real redesign of this team.
Well, that sounds familiar, and hopefully we won't be in that position ourselves. We'll see what happens. We've got more to dig into this match for sure. We had a fantastic interview. Definitely stick around. When we come back, it's Noah and Ari from Lobbing Scorchers. And we're back. We are now joined by some guests, some visitors from the Lobbing Scorchers, Seattle Sounders podcast. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure, yeah. Ari Lillianwall.
I'm Noah Reif. We are Lobbing Scorchers, Sounders podcast, a MLS podcast, a shithousery podcast, perhaps. That's all of the above.
This is our favorite type of podcast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lob you guys a compliment right away and just say that the kits that you're wearing, Darren and I are much underdressed, and the compliments will stop after this. But we do have to acknowledge that
we're enemies. We're sworn enemies.
Both kids are top tier and already your top guests just by your choices of apparel and outfits.
Well, thank you. Up the goals. Shout out to Brighton, top of the Premier League, best team to ever exist. They've never been bad ever in their entire lifespan.
And I've got New Mexico United to represent my home state.
Yeah, so be nice to Ari because we're like brothers now. United and
exactly.
I mean, yeah, you do a Sounders podcast, but you're wearing the New Mexico jersey. That's all we care about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a gesture of goodwill.
LA is like geographical average, sort of.
Like yeah, that's true.
Places. I don't know.
That is true.
Look how early I'm stretching for things.
Yeah, you guys may not know this, but we are the Walkable City discussion podcast of record for MLS. But usually it happens when we run out of things to talk about. Darren, we have plenty to talk about because there is a big game.
Yeah,
because
we're happy to talk about that too. Seattle's we live walkable to each other. We walk to pod.
Yeah.
Wow. This is like what a get for us.
Champion.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
I love it.
The best part about bringing that up and now hearing that you can walk to pod is that we could not live farther away from each other in the county of Los Angeles. Like it's astounding, but it makes complete sense when you think about what Los Angeles is in the greater context of the county. But Darren, we do have things to talk about. We'll get to the walkable cities when we run out of stuff.
Our teams will play each other shortly.
Yeah, in a game nobody cared about until Cucho scored a goal in the 90-plus minute on Sunday. Now we're all, if you're an LAFC fan, we're back in. U.S. Open Cup, the most important game of the season. We're playing the Sounders. We've done fairly well against them up until now. But I would say this. Ahead of, the 2022 season, the most important match in LAFC's history trounced by the Seattle Sounders. And yet since then, things have been a little different. I'm just curious, like straight from Sounders fans and straight from guys that really are close to the team, how do you feel about LAFC in this moment? Like just in a general, not going into the game per se, but just like, what is LAFC a bogey team, or are we reading too much into that.
Well, I think before we jump into that, this might help illustrate a little bit of how we feel about LAFC. We got some champagne here to celebrate another absolutely incredible final fumble by LAFC, something that we track here often on the pod. So we will be popping this and sipping this.
Final fumbles in general, or final fumbles specifically from LAFC?
Specifically from LAFC. Yeah, no, it's a thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, while Noah gets this situated, I can take your question. I mean, speaking for us, like, we're sick of LAFC. This is like the fourth time that these two teams have played this year. And like you mentioned, it's just gotten so one-sided. I mean, we looked up the exact record. It's like LAFC is 7-0-2 in the last 9 versus Seattle. And so it's like I think there was a while where it was legitimately starting to look like a really good Western Conference rivalry. And I always hold the 2019 Western Conference Championship up as like the greatest win in Seattle club history, because that was the year. I mean, LAFC was in the year that was the Carlos Vela MVP plus 48 goal differential or whatever year, and no one, myself included, thought Seattle was winning that game, and that was this great historic win. Seattle went on to win MLS Cup, and really, I mean, there was the COVID year where Seattle knocked them out of the playoffs, but pretty much since then, it's just been all LAFC, and especially these last 2 games and this year, really, like, it's felt like the games have not only gone LAFC's ways, but like these last couple games haven't even been all that competitive. Denny Bouanga is an evil demon. He's spawned from the gates of hell. I hate watching that guy. I'm sick of him.
Yeah.
I never want to watch him play soccer again. But I mean, it's an incredible squad, right? And I mean, you know, we're popping champagne jokingly about them choking a final, but that's because that's like, with how one-sided it's been with Seattle, that's like all we have right
that's
now.
All we can hang our hat on. Yeah,
like, that's sort of where that comes from. It's not even like from a holding it over you guys. It's more just like the Schadenfreude is like what we have to hold on to.
Yeah, we became most known in the LAFC sphere for after the Champions Cup debacle, let's say, that we recorded an hour and 30-minute podcast just on that game, just to feel good about ourselves. So
you went minute by minute or what?
We just, you know,
it was just like well, because so Seattle has 2 things in this whole kind of rivalry. Number one is the 2019 Western Conference Championship, and the fact that Seattle has won Champions Cup, and LAFC couldn't quite do it. So those are like I said, that's just kind of another thing that, like, when we think of things that we have to hold on to in this dynamic right now where LAFC wins all the games, those are the 2 things that I hold on to.
We respect them, but we hate them. And, you know, we did bring up recently that it's starting to feel like the rivalry between LAFC and the Sounders is getting to a point where I'm like, all right, I might rate this rivalry over the Timbers rivalry, just because LAFC is such a big it's just a globally recognized team, right? Like, Portland plays in a baseball stadium, like, no one cares about them. They have like Evander, who's like, who even cares about that guy, you know? And it's like, we have to watch Denny Bouanga, a literal demon, play on this field, and just I weep every time he touches the field because he's too good at soccer.
Wow. Well, I feel like you put us into a trench of depression and then pulled us right out of it. That was really helpful.
That's what we're about.
With the champagne, and then now I feel like I'm drinking champagne. I don't even have it. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad that we started in that place of like, you mentioned that you're sick of playing us. I feel like we've gotten into this weird situation with Seattle, Vancouver, maybe even Portland, where like we're at the point where we're like, okay, we're doing it again. Let's see if we can do it again. And it's somewhat like, we were so happy to have you guys on, because it's just like, okay, like, what is there that's new to this that we can bring to the situation?
Actually,
it's definitely
legitimately,
helpful to hear
what is new? What is new? Like, what?
Well,
we have a little bit of new stuff on our end too.
Yeah, well, I do think there's like a little bit of a different spin to this game and novelty to it, with it being an Open Cup game, but also at Starfire. This is what we were just talking about on our show.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I don't think LAFC has ever played at Starfire.
No.
And it is a whole different animal than games at like a big stadium or at Lumen Field, because the dimension, it's a very narrow pitch. It's like the pace of play is incredibly fast because of how like unique the dimensions are, and the environment is very crazy because it's 5,000 person venue. They pack for every Open Cup game, they pack it to the brim. It's incredibly loud, and the fans are right on top of the field, whereas at Lumen it's this vast like expanse where the fans, there's kind of the separation between what's going on in the field and the fans in the stands. Starfire, they're right, the fans are right on top of you, like all of the heckling and the insults that they're hurling out at like the goalkeepers and the players on the field, you can hear them on the field. And it really it affects a visiting team's tactics quite a lot, because we were just talking about this, but like any notion of playing conservatively or defensively is much more difficult because of how fast the pace of play is. So it's just like it's a variable that creates like an entirely different game than you would normally see on like a normal size pitch. And like I said, like it's going to be a really crazy, rowdy environment. So I think like Seattle's all-time record in Open Cup games at Starfire is they've only lost twice all time at Starfire in the Open Cup. One was the game against the Timbers where Clint Dempsey famously got ejected for tearing up the referee's notebook, and Seattle actually finished that game with 7 guys on the pitch because there was like an injury and a bunch of red cards. So there was that one. And then like last year, I think the Quakes won in PKs. Other than that, Seattle's never lost an Open Cup game at this building, and they've played like 30 games there. So like as much as LAFC has the upper hand in terms of like talent differential and like the quality of Denny Bouanga and Bogus and Giroud, if he plays, I doubt he's going to play, but like I think like if there's one thing that we're kind of hoping for from a Seattle perspective, it's that the Starfire variable will affect LAFC's game plan and their execution during the game enough where it turns what should be a game where LAFC is pretty heavily favored into just a 50-50 toss-up.
Yeah, and it's, the big thing is we kind of know the LAFC mindset a little bit. We've watched them play about 150 billion times against the Sounders. It's,
just this season.
Just this season. We played 400 times this season. It's crazy. And, that tanking, that like, we'll wait you out, we'll let you have possession. At Starfire, it's just too much of an onslaught to do that. You've got to hold some possession to be successful there. And if you score, it doesn't really matter. There's going to be other chances to come back, no matter the quality of the team on the other side.
It'll be entertaining. Like that I can pretty much guarantee. I've never seen an Open Cup game at Starfire that didn't have my adrenaline going. And I think like with that dynamic between these two teams right now, that's probably going to be accentuated, because the other thing I'll tell you guys is that like this is such a golden opportunity for Seattle to like kind of kick LAFC while they're down a little bit, like coming off this emotional Leagues Cup loss, short turnaround. Seattle, I guarantee you the players, and I know for a fact all the fans are sick of how these fixtures have been going. And like the fans and I guarantee the players are definitely like relishing the chance to like twist the knife a little bit.
I was not aware of how intense that change in venue is going to be. That's really exciting and terrifying. I will say we usually do dread going up to Seattle anyway for the turf alone.
This is worse. This is like
worse turf. Good. Like, thank you. Great.
I
like
played
Portland
there
level
as a kid. Oh, worse.
Oh, really?
Worse.
Yeah,
it's really bad.
It's like you can see the ridges.
Yeah.
Oh.
Great.
It's like
bridges in this case not good, not like
professional
Ruffles.
Game on this, arguably no.
Yeah, 100%.
So
that sounds like US Open Cup. Yeah, that sounds great.
Exactly.
As it should be.
Yeah, exactly.
So venue aside, and the advantages, disadvantages, that are we going to see anything different from Seattle? Because lately the talk has been, well, the player, the should be the best player on your team, just can't get on the field, can't stay healthy. Are we going to see pretty much the same? Like, is Brian going to roll out the same team and be like, guys, there's no way they can beat you guys again? Like, let's make this happen. Or do you foresee them playing in a different way not just because of the conditions and the dimensions of the field.
I think it's going to be a pretty strong lineup. I don't know. Like Schmetz has been running out pretty much the same lineup every game in Leagues Cup and in this last game against Minnesota on Saturday. You know, it is like a pretty tight turnaround. So that might affect, like, there might be a little bit of rotation. But I certainly think, like, you know, I know Schmetz really wants to win this game, and I think there's like enough of a rest here where like certain guys, like I think Jordan Morris probably starts. I think Rusnak probably starts. And really in this last resurgent run of games that Seattle has had against everyone besides LAFC, where they've been playing more like a 2 points per game pace over the last couple months, the Morris and Rusnak duo has been very effective and very productive. I think they're probably he's probably going to run them out there for this game. And then you might see a little bit of rotation on the back line. Like the starting CBs are usually Yamar and Jackson Reagan. You might see like a John Bell in this game, who's been a pretty effective like third CB. And you might see maybe a younger guy at right back, but I think Nuhu, who's Seattle's best defender, or at least 1v1 defender, I think he'll start. So I think it's going to be pretty much first choice, except for maybe one or two changes. But I really think Seattle is going to be going for it in this game. I don't know. Do you see it different?
No, I think it's going to be the same. We're going to be. I think it's really going to come down to Paul Rothrock, one of our fan favorites here. He is a absolute Open Cup merchant. The only thing that he likes more than scoring in the Open Cup is looking as hot as he does. Like he's a good looking young man. I think he's going to, probably you could look at the lineup that we played this past weekend. It's probably going to be exactly the same. I don't think there will be any new wrinkle. Just simply because if it works, don't try and tinker with it.
And in all seriousness, like watch out for Paul Rothrock. He will score on you at Starfire.
That's his favorite thing to do.
He was good the first half of the last matchup. And I would say like no one reaches the levels of shithousery that Nuhu does, but like Paul's definitely on the path.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's been the biggest storyline on our show this year.
Yeah, we love shithousery. We love a little random, and it'll get like that. Starfire, the crowd. I mean, I think the best Starfire moment, if we can go back to that for a second, was Marcus Hanneman, the former Sounders goalkeeper, chugging a beer after winning an Open Cup game from a dude in like right behind the goal. So like that type of energy.
That's beautiful.
He would have done that anyways.
If nothing else, I would say we're a pro chaos podcast more than anything else, even pro LAFC.
And a pro good-looking soccer players podcast.
That's true.
I mean, we enjoy a good-looking soccer player.
It's just as frustrating to hear about the good looks as it is to hear about the form of the team for us. Like we pride ourselves on that just as much as anything else. I feel like the transfers we look for, that's a criteria for us. We need good-looking guys on the team.
Yeah, we don't go to StatsBomb. We go straight to Google Images.
Yeah, that's where our front office is looking.
I'm at the Instagram swiping, favorite, saving those images for later, so I can make sure that we match up 1-to-1. That's we're right there with you.
That's important. Yeah, you mentioned the form that you guys are in. I remember, I think the last time we played, we were talking about how this was maybe the best form we've seen Seattle in, at least this season, and certainly in a little while. We did win that match, but then didn't seem to slow you down at all. And now I feel like we're saying it again. This is probably the best form you've been in that we've faced you in a while. Again, I
think Jordan Morris coming into his own is a big deal.
This is the best he's looked in a while. At least that we've been lucky enough to see him like not at his best for a good chunk of games. I feel like.
I would argue it's the best he's ever been in his entire career.
He's out of his mind right now. Him and Rusnak both are on. It's definitely like been a stark turnaround from the beginning of the season where we went through a lot of games and recorded a lot of podcasts where this offense was just tough to watch, frankly. Like we had like a running joke about like, will the Seattle Sounders score multiple MLS goals in this game? Like probably not. And if they did, it was like, oh my God, hooray. Like I can't believe it. And then usually they would not. And there was dog days for sure. But they really, the last 2 or so months, they've turned it around quite a bit. They're scoring a lot of goals. And really, I think the things to watch out for are Rusnak has really excellent delivery into the box. And he can do it. He can range out and do it from really far out wide. And he can put the put in service on a dime. And he's also a very, very good set piece taker. Like his free kicks into the box particularly have just been dead eye through this whole stretch. And his corner kicks are elite in MLS right now. So he's been a big driver of it. And then kind of the crazy thing that happened was, Seattle still has Raul Ruidiaz, who's a club legend. And I mean, the club's all-time leading goal scorer. He's coming off the bench right now because he was not effective earlier in the season. He is not scoring goals at the rate that we've been accustomed to seeing from him. And Schmetzer, to his credit, made the change of starting Jordan Morris as the full-time number 9. And as soon as he made that change, and it was Rusnak and Morris playing off each other as like a 1-2 duo with Rusnak as the 10 and Morris up top, the offense really took off. And like you mentioned earlier, this is all without De La Vega's been hurt the whole year. And he was supposed to be the signing that elevated this offense from what it was last year. And we really still, to this day, at this point in the season, have not really gotten any sort of sustained look at what he looks like. That like he's just coming back from like his 3rd or 4th injury just now. So I think what we're trying to hope for down the stretch and into the playoffs is that he gets healthy and actually starts playing. And then I'm curious to see what this team's ceiling could be offensively, because we really haven't seen it with De La Vega in there. And the Morris Rusnak duo has been great for a couple months now. So it's definitely like it's been a tough season at times, but the arrow has been pointing up lately. And there's kind of this like backhanded reason for hope that maybe a run down the stretch and in the playoffs is in the cards here if De La Vega can actually get fit and contribute.
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect potential game for him to get a super sub moment, break in, cause a little chaos. He's looked good. He had a insane curved goal waved off for it was an offside call, but fans will argue that till they turn blue in the face. But
cool goals should count. That's
exactly cool goals.
We do have a rule.
Count. I like
we
that.
We do have a rule on our show that Vince coined that if it's cool, it should count.
Yeah.
Nah,
this was like a gold standard for that rule because it was an incredible goal and it didn't count, but it's still like whenever we watch him play, you see even in this Minnesota game this weekend, he had this pass that sprung Jordan Morris on a breakaway. That was, is a perfect ball. Yeah. So you see it in flashes, and we're like, I don't know how much of a role he's going to play in this game. I don't know if Schmetz is going to want to put him out there on this Starfire turf, but that's more forward looking. That's something that we're kind of hoping we see happen.
I'm curious, because I'm old enough to remember that the Sounders are able to make a run out of nothing at any point in the season. It doesn't matter where they are in the standings. And I think you look at the West and you say, like, the West is pretty soft. Like, other than LAFC, I still am not quite sure about RSL. And they made some good incomings, but they also sent out some very good players. And if Chicho doesn't play, it seems like it doesn't matter. The Galaxy, clearly Seattle knows how to play the Galaxy. They can go forward, but other than that, Seattle knows how to pants them in any kind of big game. So is this the most important game of your season, or is there is it overstating it because Seattle can always make a run and could do something, as you said, in the playoffs?
No, I don't think it's overstating it because Seattle needs the psychological weight off their mind that they can't beat this LAFC team. 7-0-2 over the last 9 is not just unacceptable, it's psychologically damaging. Like when another team has your number to that extent and you just can't seem to beat them. And especially for me, at least, it's less about the results these last couple games and more just Seattle didn't look competitive. They got played off the field at home and didn't make adjustments that changed the result from the first game to the second game. And really dating back a long time now, just has not been able to get results against this team. And for Seattle, I think to gain the confidence and the psychological just relief, they need to beat this team and they need to win this game. And also, I think there's just so much riding on the principle of like I said, beating LAFC when they're already down, they've just lost Leagues Cup, to like knock them out of Open Cup like 3 days later on top of that. There is no better way to like cure this like one-sided feeling of a team that you can't get the better of than eliminating them from the Open Cup right here. So like, to answer your question, I think this is the most important game of Seattle's season, not even necessarily because of the Open Cup final on the line, although that is a big factor, but because they need to beat LAFC like to have confidence that they can do it in the playoffs. If they get played off the park at Starfire again, what reason is there to think that if there's a playoff matchup, it'll go any different? None. So.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. It's make or break, not only for the Open Cup, which I think, funny enough, there's our general manager was hanging his hat on about, we have a competitive team that can win trophies. Look at this. We're in the Leagues Cup, whatever round of whatever. We're in the semifinal for Open Cup, and we're still in a playoff spot. My man hung his hat on some pretty shaky ground. So from the top down on this club, it's a really, really big match that means a lot more, in my opinion, to the Sounders than it does to LAFC, even though I understand like getting your ass beat by Columbus for the 15th time in a final or in an important game sucks. And like, you're going to want to put the whomping on someone else. I just don't think it means as much to LAFC, respectfully, as it does to the Sounders, where like legitimately I would say this is their best opportunity to actually bring home some silverware this season.
I got a question for you guys real quick.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, do you think Bouanga is going to start this game?
Yeah.
I think so.
The man is, I don't even think he's a man. He's a machine. You watch him in games, and the fact that he continues to like run at full pace, like no matter what. I mean, I remember, so when he first came to the club, it was like he always had a translator. I think he still does use a translator mostly, but his English, he understands. I mean, he can actually speak pretty good English. It's just, these guys, when they're doing interviews, they don't want to be misquoted, so they prefer to use a translator. But I remember there was a spell where he like didn't score in like 4 games, which to normal players doesn't seem like a big deal, but we're talking about Denny Bouanga. And I was like, so what goes through your mind? Like, do you get mad? And he kind of like smirked and like kind of laughed. And then he gave a long answer. And while the woman was translating, he was like, I get mad. And I was like, I fucking love that. Like, the guy wants to score goals. And I think legitimately, I know he really likes winning games, but also secretly he's like, if I didn't score and we win, did we play? Did we win?
He's a killer
right now.
Yeah.
He's getting stifled. This last match was Drew's first start, so I think my guess is if I was Denny Bouanga, I'd be like, great, he's going to draw some defenders away. Drew got his first goal. Bouanga
Drew scoring
got
maybe
blanked.
powers Bouanga. Yeah, Bouanga had a bad game too. I mean, he made some poor decisions. Obviously,
He hasn't quite been himself the last few games.
well, he's a 1v1 monster, right? But
Yeah.
Columbus has his number and understands how to get the numbers over there. And when
Right.
he gets it in his head that he needs to beat somebody, he's going to keep going to the well. And I think he'll feel pretty confident about his ability to score against Seattle, but I don't even think it matters. I don't think he honestly knows what team he's playing against. Again, he just sees, he's like, goal, I put ball in goal, and then I get to flip.
Yeah, this is a guy who played for his national team in Gabon and then found a way to make it to an LAFC match like 12 hours later. Like, it was.
Yeah,
dude, he's a
he's just like, it's a soccer game. Why would I not play?
Yeah.
And that was pretty early in his tenure with us, so we were kind of all surprised by that and kind of like learned the language of Denny Bouanga through that. But sorry, what were you going to say?
I mean, it's funny, like going into the playoff game last year, obviously the game plan and like everything leading up to the game is all about how do you stop Denny Bouanga. And I actually thought Seattle did such a great job for most of that game in keeping him at bay. Nuhu was like playing the game of his life, trying to keep this guy contained. And it was actually going like as well as you could hope against a player like that. Mm-hmm. And then it's just that one moment where he gets out on the break. And I swear, man, like when he's running in the open field, that's the most terrifying sight in the league. Like when he's running at you, it's just like, I don't really know what you do about it.
He's not slower with the ball. which is it
No,
looks
yeah,
strange.
exactly. It's the same speed. It's the same speed, and like all he needs is that one moment. And last year, it made the difference in the playoff game. So I'd never go into a game against that guy and feel good about it at all. And so I was hoping maybe, but like also we were joking about this when LAFC was in Champions League last year.
We have a term called like the CCL hangover.
Yeah, and like it felt like LAFC rotated way less than your average MLS team in Champions League. And Bouanga's just out there. It doesn't matter like if the game is 2 or 3 days later, he's still out there playing the full 90. Does this guy get tired? Like how is we were
Bouanga
legitimately
doesn't.
like you can just play him every game and it doesn't matter.
The rest of the team does.
Yeah. The rest of the team definitely does. And I legitimately think it's more detrimental to LAFC to have Bouanga there and not put him in the game. I would fear for Steve Cherundolo's life if he was like, so you're just going to sit next to me and I'll get you in when we can.
We'll be able to hear everything, so we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Are the seats? Is it just normal bench seats, or like can players sit behind the coach? Because I feel like if he's behind Steve, he'll be able to burn a hole in the back of his head.
It's bench seats.
Think of like you're a little league team, kind of style. Like it's literally that, and then it's like maybe 3 feet, and then you have the walkway metal bleachers, but people are in your ear chirping all game long, and not only to like the opposing team. Well, the last game I was at, I think it was tied at half or something, whatever. Dude next to me starts chirping at Brian Schmetzer, and I got to lean over to him and be like, "Hey, buddy, you're not down there coaching. You need to zip it." So it's a electric atmosphere. It was great.
We were really hoping
I'm interested to see. What's that?
We were hoping to say
the visual of Giroud playing at Starfire, the all-time leading goal scorer of the French national team, like at this
in Renton, Washington.
Tukwila,
sorry.
But I don't think he's going to play. But
he doesn't start. But Steve did come out after the game and said he doesn't think it's very bad. So I think he definitely goes. And he said that, and obviously he did play on turf when we played you guys the last time. Like he's not really afraid of turf. It's not like a Chiellini situation where Giorgio's like, look, my career could be over. Giroud is in a different class in terms of his fitness. I do think that Kai Kamara starts. I think he gives them a better chance with his mobility, depending on how injured Giroud is. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Olivier get in there. Bit. Yeah, depending on
Can we talk about Kai Kamara for a second?
Sure.
That dude is 800 years old and is still like insanely talented. We were talking about like we signed Danny Musovski.
Former LAFC.
You're
legend.
No?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Legend.
I think he's okay. I don't know what you guys think about him, but I've said this. I'm not normally this hot takey with players, but that dude frustrates me to watch play soccer. That dude like pisses me off to watch play. And maybe it's just the mental state he's in. I would hate being a backup 9. That would kill me mentally, but to see him come in and just like do-do-do, do-do-do. And then I'm seeing Kai Kamara. I'm ready for that dude to score a bike. That dude is, he's I can't just, you continue.
Well, Musovski was actually productive for LAFC, was he not? Like,
yeah, well,
a little.
He's a confidence player. So I think to your point, like when he shows up and he's like, wait, I'm not the starting 9. He's gone. You've lost him.
He's checked out.
Danny is a good finisher, but that's about it. So like if he's not getting chances and then obviously he's checked out too, he's not of much use to you. But yeah, Kai though, you got it. It's obviously that, right? It's his ability. I mean, he could still jump out of the building at 87 or however old he is, but like,
it helps that he
94.
has wings.
The mentality, like he literally shows up and I guarantee they told him, they're like, Giroud's coming. So just so you know, like you're a stopgap. And the guy couldn't be happier. He clearly needed that goal, right? He wanted to go ahead of Landon in the scoring charts. Go consecutive games, he gets it. And then it's like, no, I still got something, guys. Like, and he's a joy to be around. Like, there's something special about a player like that. And I think the converse is a Danny Musovski who, gets sour about kind of things. And that's a bummer because I do like Danny. I think he's a good story, but just kind of a bummer.
I do remember he went on a bit of a hot streak at RSL, and I remember being like, "Wait, where was this? What's going on here?"
Yeah, and then they bought Chicho.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Wait, what the?" Like,
yeah.
There was a weird period. Maybe it was last season or the beginning of this season. There was a weird period where we watched like 4 other teams with I think it was last season, with like 3 or 4 other teams with former LAFC duos scoring at will when we couldn't buy a goal. And it was a very strange period of time for us as fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Musovski Chicho era there was when that was working. It was pretty tough to
Talk
watch.
about a great buddy cop movie. Chicho and Musovski. What incredible.
He would be a good movie cop. That should be his next career, is acting. I think he could totally hit that. He's got the like good facial. He's built for it, I think. He
needs the mustache like you, and then he's just a dead ringer.
There it is.
I'll let him know. I'll slide him that contract. I'll be like, buddy, hear me out.
I mean,
all right?
You said it, Starfire. You should be able to hear you.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be like,
let him know on Wednesday.
Yeah. Danny.
Going back to Bouanga real quick, I think it'll be really particularly interesting for him with a narrow pitch. So you're talking about figuring out a way to beat him. That might have been how you figured it out.
Well, here, sorry, not to like totally piggyback off you, Darren, but like, yeah, for Bouanga and both your best player right now, Jordan Morris, they thrive on space and behind. So like, who has the advantage on this field?
I think Seattle does, just because they have played on it a lot and they know how it plays. That's a huge advantage, in my opinion. I don't know if Seattle will make anything of that advantage, but I think you can go back and look at the results that Seattle has had in this tournament historically, like playing at this venue. They're very, very hard to beat at this venue, like that. Like, and it doesn't really, like, the historical trends of it. It doesn't seem to matter who they play. There have been some like really tough, hard-fought, close games, for sure, like competitive games, but like Seattle never gets boat raced at Starfire, just because most of the visiting teams, they don't have like any base of knowledge for how to game plan for it. And then even as good as you could ever game plan for it, like once you're out there in these crazy dimensions with how different it plays than a normal MLS stadium, it's very hard to adapt to and adjust to. So I would think that that's what we're hoping, is that Seattle has an advantage from that. But like, I don't know, just listening to you talk about it right there, like honestly, Denny Bouanga in like even more enclosed space almost sounds a little scarier than it would be on a bigger field.
I don't know. The way he usually succeeds is he goes to the box at a certain angle, which he now no longer has. And then a little more often than I would like, to the point where it seems pretty predictable, he'll put that last touch. He'll go one more like touch toward the goal line than you think is possible, and you're like, he's not going to go that way. There's no angle there, and then he does, and he finds an angle and he scores. And I think defenders in the last, I don't know, handful of matches have started to get a little bit wiser to that. But also, I feel like it helps to have some space on the side if you're going to try to pull that off as often as he does. So I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like the sound of it.
I think also,
it doesn't sound great to be playing in what sounds like an indoor field. Like we're playing indoor soccer.
It really
sounds
is like comparable to that. Yeah.
I think
we're playing sevens. Like what's going on?
Yeah, basically we should. That would be so sick. 7-on-7
really
Open Cup. That might be the
semifinals and finals should be sevens.
I think you just solved the MLS's problem with Open Cup. Is like, oh, it's too much, too many injuries. 7v7 would be so sick.
I mean, Seattle played with 7 there once. It was just not intentional.
Yeah, you said that.
It just wasn't ideal. But
Seattle invented the 7v7 again.
That's
you
true.
know, the meme, it
The
continues.
birthplace of the 7-man match.
Yeah, I think having a poacher though, like Kai Kamara, someone like Kai Kamara can be a poacher for sure.
Yeah.
And that could play really well on a Starfire type, because I feel like a lot of the goals on Starfire tend to be like a Paul Rothrock poacher goal or something like that, where it's just bouncing around in the box and you're just finding a way. So I don't know who I'm excited. Neither of us are ready to say that Seattle will win this match, but I think
I would think it's fair to say both sides of the podcast are not excited for this game. In terms of optimism, we're excited for the game, but the optimism of like our team coming out on top, we both have legitimate reasons to say, I don't really want to play this game right now.
We're so beaten down by these last 9 LAFC results. But I mean, the other thing I was going to say is that like Starfire games do get a little track meaty. Like it can be a lot of back and forth, up and down, transition play, which I do. I mean, that's what LAFC excels at.
We're happy
So
about
like
that.
depending on how they adjust to the dimensions and the speed of play, that is something that like LAFC might be better equipped to handle a game state like that than most teams who are coming to Starfire.
Fair.
I hope we can pull it off. I will say you mentioned earlier about how needing to get the monkey off your back. I found myself sympathizing with you guys, even though we're on the other end of that situation. But we're in the same situation. Like we're still hungover from 15 hours ago, being in the exact same situation with Columbus. We can't seem to fucking beat them, and whether it's a league match or a finals match, I would really like the next time we play them to not be in another finals. Maybe like some baby steps trying to beat them, but we cannot figure it out. So I think when you were saying that this, like, Seattle needs it more, I think maybe a win doesn't quite mean as much to LAFC as it might to Seattle, but a loss means at least as much to LAFC as a loss would to Seattle. Is that a fair way to put it, Vince? What do you think? I think losing Leagues Cup finals and then 3 days later losing US Open Cup semifinals to a team that we've had your number for a bit, that feels like a nice little rock bottom for the season for us, for sure.
That's what we were talking
about. I would hope that's
show.
Rock bottom.
Yeah, I was saying, I think like another thing, at least that, you know, we're hoping plays in Seattle's favor is that I do think the pressure is on LAFC in this game because of exactly what you said, like getting eliminated from two different tournaments 3 or 4 days apart. Like that is not good for the vibes and the morale, you know? So when you're going into a game and you feel like the pressure isn't on you as much, you can play a little freer. You don't have that kind of weight of expectation on your back. Mm-hmm. So, and especially with how one-sided this dynamic has been lately, I'm hoping Seattle leans into that a little bit and just kind of takes on the same mentality they took on in that 2019 Western Conference Championship, where LAFC could not have been more favored. And I think Seattle was able to kind of play on a similar thing in that game, which is that, you know, no one expects us to win this game. If we lose, no one's going to really bat an eye. We can just go out there and like have fun, play our game, and like let the chips fall. And I think they use that to great effect in that game. I'm hoping they kind of lean into that again in this game, because I think the whole fan base out here is probably expecting Seattle to lose. And I think I'm hoping they can use that to their advantage in a way.
It's absolutely like criminal and cruel to think, but this is the way football goes sometimes, is like LAFC really is kind of in a no-win situation. It's like, hey, if you won, you got to another final. Well, it doesn't matter unless you win it. And to Darren's point, if you lose, the knives will be even more will be out. But I want to say you guys have been awesome. Like we normally go on with people for about 15 minutes and we're almost at like 3/4 an hour here.
You've been very generous with your time.
Could you tell everybody, because you guys are very fun, and I do think that even if you're an LAFC fan, you should be listening to Lobbing Scorchers. Yeah. Can you tell everybody where to find you guys?
We'll take that cosign.
We've got a couple of LAFC fans in our YouTube comments. Like this last show we recorded, we clowned on LAFC a lot, but it's an
equal opportunity clown show over here. Exactly. We clown on the Sounders too.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll set up a little freeway.
There we go. Freeway. I5, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. So we're hosted on Sounder at Heart right now, which is the most popular Sounders fan blog that used to be a part of SB Nation, but about a year ago went independent, and they've created a podcast network for local podcasts out here. So we're on that with them. Their podcast is called Nos Audietas, which is great. And then there's also the Cooler Guild, which covers Seattle Reign. So we're a part of that network. And if you go to sounderatheart.com/LS, that's like where you can find all of our shows. And then also you can find us on like all the normal
YouTube,
platforms.
Spotify, Instagram,
and then, the big thing that we're pushing right now though is the YouTube, because we just started that like a month or two ago, and we've already gotten some pretty decent little traction, and we're trying to
get happy foot, sad foot numbers.
We're trying to get those numbers.
Come on.
So if anyone watching this wants to sub to our YouTube, that's probably the best thing you could do for us right now.
Yeah, just search Lobbing Scorchers, you'll find us.
Yeah, go like their stuff, subscribe to their stuff. Even if you're like, what am I going to do listening to Sounders?
We cover all of MLS too.
You cover other stuff too, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So we cover MLS and U.S. men's and women's national team.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Put it in your rotation. Just
we lob all sorts of Scorchers. Don't you worry. We will warn you though. There is a little bit of pro Galaxy propaganda. We do love Joey Paintsill just a little bit. He is one of our.
We're Joey Paintsill.
Okay, we're going over time here.
Yeah, we got to cut later. Breaking up.
Well, we're good. We can have selective hearing.
Yeah, you can just fast forward through that part. You're good.
Yeah, well, fast forward. Yeah, if you could start offering like LAFC fan warnings, I think your viewers.
Trigger
content warning. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah,
content warnings. That sounds great. You've done the impossible, which is pick us, at least these two guys, back up after a really horrifying loss to get excited about this next match. I did not imagine that we would be excited for a Wednesday match this week against Seattle, who we've played a lot in the U.S. Open Cup, which is like, I don't know whether we're supposed to care about this, but now I can't wait for this match. This is going to be great, and I hope we can do this again. Yeah. Dare I say, excited to play Seattle another time so we can hang out again?
No. Yeah. We'll talk about a different game.
You've taken me too far.
Yeah.
Don't worry. We'll probably see you in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't have to worry too much. We'll be
here
again
for game 162 or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, shout out to our new rivals, Happy Foot, Sad Foot. This is a great collaboration we're starting here. Maybe are we Lobbing Feet? New name here. Collab name, Lobbing Feet.
Let's try it.
Happy Scorchers, Sad Scorchers. Lobbing Feet works better than the other way around.
Yeah, it's
cool. You guys take it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both for having us. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for being here. When we come back, what are we doing next? We're making some bets?
Yeah.
All right. And we're back. Now it's time for a segment called Bet It and Forget It.
Bet it and forget it.
Every week, we end the show with a bet for this week's game. We make an outlandish prediction, something that almost definitely will not happen, but could. Each week, we all put up $5. If no one hits, the money rolls over to the next week, and eventually, by the time someone's weird prediction comes true, they might win a good chunk of change. Our bet pool for this week is $30. We did not have a preview episode in the last match, so we didn't have any bets to wallow over.
We had a lot of stuff to wallow over, though, Darren. So we didn't miss it.
I've just decided, that's true. I've just decided that since the bet pool is $30, that means Travis is contributing but can't win. Sure. We'll let him argue with us about that.
You could get a last-second bet in on Twitter or something.
That's true. Yeah, Travis, you still have time if you're listening.
All bets are viable.
Travis, big fan of the show. I've been told.
Well, I will say this. All bets are viable until the opening whistle, unless it's Travis's patented, I think something will happen with Ollie bet, which is off the table here because Ollie will not be there.
Or maybe the bet is that Ollie will be there.
Oh, well, then in that case, you got to get it in the day before.
Yes. I have a bet.
Okay.
And it's a modification of a bet that's quite familiar to many people. But hearing about this pitch, I can't help but think maybe this is the time we see a Hugo Lloris goal.
Oh, it's not unprecedented in the grand scheme of football history. Like, these things happen.
They said so. Just as we've heard, and now that you've heard this interview, we're dealing with not only a narrow pitch and a small pitch, but particularly bad turf.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Some crazy shit might happen, and crazier shit has happened. And if we can say that a PK counts, that makes it a little bit more possible if it goes to PKs. And he needs to shoot. So I don't know. Maybe this is the time. The assist thing has happened twice, and I wasn't there to bet it. Or did I get one of them? I don't think I even caught one.
Well, you got one of them. You tried like a parlay.
Well, because it was the French.
And you wanted. You said 2, and you didn't get 2.
And I still didn't get it.
Yeah.
So at this point, I got to up the ante. I can't just bet it again and hope it hits. That's a coward's game. So I got to raise the bar, and we'll see what happens.
I'm actually so glad that you went with a callback to our interview. And I can't stress enough that those guys were so cool to join us. We talked for even longer than what will be in the episode. We just, we can't have 2-hour long episodes. We just can't do that. It's against our rules. And actually, Joe Rogan has a monopoly on that. You can only go 2 hours or more if you're talking about insane conspiracies in the middle of Austin, Texas with Joe Rogan.
He does. I'm happy to not do so.
Yeah, we're also adamantly opposed to doing anything in his ilk. But I will, in the ilk of Darren doing a callback, I'm going to do a callback to our interview, and my bet will be something that Noah referred to that he thinks could happen. And I'm going to say Kai Kamara bicycle kick.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yep. Kai Kamara bicycle
that sounds great.
Kick goal.
These are, dare I say, classic bets
to
keep your eyes out for. And as I mentioned in the interview, I really am genuinely so excited to watch this now. And I came into this, whatever the opposite of that it was. I was not ready to watch this again, to watch Seattle again. This was feeling like a real bummer of a week coming up. But yeah, I'm thrilled now. I really can't wait to watch this game and hopefully watch us really bounce back with some authority. So we shall see. That is our show. Is it not? Did we miss anything?
No, other than missing Travis, we covered. We did it. We did the thing. I'll tell you what, if LAFC puts in half the effort that we did on a quick turnaround, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about their chances.
We're back. We are so back. Our theme music is done by the insane team of James Valentine, Nate Walcott, and Louis Palmer. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, where all of our clips and episodes are available in video form at youtube.com/@happyfootsadfoot, and heed the plug from our guests as well and subscribe to them as well. It sounds like they have a great show for you to check out. We can certainly vouch for it. You can review us or them on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you're a longtime viewer and listener of us, and then you just go ahead and review them instead of us. That's certainly a power move. I can't blame you. You can follow us on all the social media platforms, and if you've made it this far into the episode, chances are you're enjoying the show. If that's true and you want to show even more support, you can consider becoming a friend of the foot for $5 a month at patreon.com/happyfootsadfoot. There's a lot of great perks that come with that. You can read more about that there, or you can pick up some Sappho inspired merch by going to happyfootsadfootpod.com. Any support you give really goes a long way to keeping the show going, keeping the community growing. The chats, the Patreon chats, the live stream chats, the super chats, the posts, everything. The community has been on fire lately, very active and so fun, and really keeping this going, especially in the face of losses. So thank you so much for all the support that you've given and continue to give. It just hopefully comes right back to you by making the show better. So with that, thank you again, and we'll see you at Starship Trooper Arena.
Starfire.
I love you.
Starfire.
I love you. Bye.
Starfire, baby.
That's Starfire, baby.
That's Starfire.
That's Star Fox.
That's Starfire.